Alright, so we've got the circle all pinned, and I'm just going to show you a few things on here. So it should lay pretty smooth right along the seam line. This is fine, there's nothing wrong with this, but if you start having a bunch of pins where they're overlapping or there's fullness right here, right along the seam, look how nice and flat that lays. So like right there, there's going to be some issues, but you can check it. If you go like that, see how it still lays flat? It's the same with all of these right here. You should be able to adjust them so that visually they do lay flat, and that's just a measure of adjusting this part, see? But this seam portion, you shouldn't have any bunchiness in there. If you do, or if you have like pins where you end up with like little crimps in between like this, then that's a poor distribution of the fullness of that background portion. So if you end up with a bunch of tight pins right here, or you're having to push and pull your outer circle to get it to fit as you get towards the end, then I hate to tell you this, but you probably want to take it off and redistribute it. Okay, somewhere along the way it's real tight. If it's pulling up like this in a lot of places, then it's probably tighter here and looser over here. So I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to look at this because it's really flat, but seems like it's maybe a little bit tight because the top is pulling. And you can see it's a lot flatter right here maybe than it is, say, over here. So maybe there's a little bit too much fullness that's eased in here, which leaves not enough over on this side. So those are the things to look for when you are pinning your circle. This side looks pretty good right here. So I think I'm going to go readjust a couple of those from that side to that side. Alright, this is the exact same orientation that I had before, but I adjusted some of this fullness. So you can see right here, it's not pulling anymore. So it's laying flat and you're not seeing too much tension that's end up pulling it up like this. Okay, so it's starting to look a little bit better. And that's my check, so that I can go ahead and start sewing. We are going to sew from the other side, which means we're going to have to manage all of this fullness, which is kind of a pain. But it is really important to sew from the circle side. Normally, when you're easing in fullness, you wouldn't. You'd want that fullness on the top. But here, we really have to see where the points are so that we can manage our points. So we are going to be sewing from this side. Fortunately, right up under the seam allowance, it's pretty flat. And so you'll just have to be lifting up from the back side periodically and adjusting that like this underneath as we sew. So we're going to sew that together, and I'm going to get my photographer to help me out because I don't think I can sew that circle one-handed. Hi ladies, we're back. We've got the circle fully put together and the background has been cut. And we have already gone through the process of pinning it on and easing in all of the fabric. So the last piece that I wanted to share with you is how we now sew it and put it in. Okay, when we pinned it, you can see that it looks nice and smooth on the back, and all of the fullness is on the background side. Normally, if you would sew it, you would want this fullness, this extra fullness, on the top where you could control it. But because we have all of our points right in here for every one of our pattern sets, we have to sew it with this part facing up. That means it's a little more difficult to control. It's really important to sew slowly, but you can put it on there using your 1/4 inch foot. So I'm going to put it under the sewing machine right now. I'm using a Bernina 440, and I've got my 1/4 inch foot with a guide right here. Okay? You can start anywhere, doesn't really matter. When you go over the seams, try to make sure that they're flush, that they stay down. Okay, and so I'm not going to back stitch, I'm just going to start going. Alright, here we go. Alright. So right now, this is just the background piece in here. And I've got it right up against the guide. Now, right here is our point. So when I come upon this point, that's what I'm going to use as my guide. Right where that X is, I want to stitch right below that X because I want the full triangle of the point to be inside. So can you see I've adjusted it just a little as I sew, and I'm going to go right through that X. Continue sewing around the background. If you need to, you can use a pin to kind of help you. And I can feel with my finger right here that there's no bumps, there's no fullness, and that's how I'm managing the fullness that's on the other side. Okay? If I think that I am having trouble and it's not full, I'm going to lift it up. Can you see right underneath? And I'm just going to smooth that out with my finger, and I can feel it on the top with my finger. I just feel, is there any bump or is there any fullness? And I don't feel any, so that's how I control for that. So now I'm coming up on another X, and see how it's a little bit far in? So I'm actually going to lift my 1/4 inch foot just a little bit right there, and I'm going to control it so that I can get right through that X. Yeah, there we go. And then I'm going to readjust it right here so I'm following that 1/4 inch seam. Alright, see there's my 1/4 inch right there, there's the point. Now I'm not going to stitch all the way around, I'm actually going to take this out right now just so you can see it. Okay, so ladies, you can see right here we've got our 1/4 inch stitch line, and you can see right here we're right at the top of the point. Right here, we can see the point right here. So now I'm going to flip it over and just let you see what it looks like for the small part that we've sewn. Okay? And there you can see, now we've got our point. Our point right there, our point right there. And see, it's pretty smooth. Okay? And as long as we've pinned evenly, when we go all the way around the circle, we should be able to fold that out, and we're going to press it this way so that this stays flat, just like that. We're going to press the background to the background like that. So guys, I wanted to show you what to do if you get to a point like this where it seems like it's a little bit short. So if you put it in the 1/4 inch foot, you'd end up cutting it off. So what I do when that happens is I'm just going to put my finger here on this pin, and I'm going to guide it just a little bit. Excuse my camera work here. So I'm going to guide it. See how it's a little short there? And try to have it just go right through that X, and then gently, gently, gently ease it back into that 1/4 inch right there, just like that. Okay? And that should work, because that outer edge is biased a little bit. It has a little bit of give in it, so it has a little flexibility if you have a tight point like that. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and finish this up, and when I'm all done, I'll press it and we'll be back and I'll show you what it looks like. Alright guys, so we have got the background pieced in, so I'm just going to show you how to press it. So if you see right here, there's the background. Okay, the circle is flat, and we're going to press the background over that, away from the circle to the outside. Okay, can you see that? And you can see I did a pretty good job with the points. Some that are too tight, I choose not to cut them off, so I always try to be real careful and not too much of a crazy perfectionist. I try to let the work speak for itself. People are not going to look that close, and if they are, well, they need to start quilting on their own, because then they would respect how challenging it can be. Alright, so I'm going to press this out, and then I'm just going to lay it out so you can see the whole thing.